parliamentarians have adopted, particularly within the last 10 to 15 years, what we're seeing in terms of their presence in Parliament. And quite frankly, whilst I'm not painting everyone with a broad brush, majority of times I'm most disappointed that we can't have healthy, constructive debates, but rather it turns into something that you would see, well, as they say in TNT, rum shop vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is again very unfortunate. And I want to, because I'm sure the politicians, they look at this, I want to tell them this is a job, right? Never forget that. But we as a society, we have to hold our leaders to account, right? Whether they are your member of parliament, whether they are a senator, whoever they may be, a councillor even, we need to hold them to account because these persons represent us, and in representing us, there must be a productive nature in how you go about it. And so what we have gotten right now is a lot of old talk, smear campaigns on everybody, and it doesn't augur well for Trinidad and Tobago and in building Trinidad and Tobago. So it is unfortunate, but we must not lose hope because, as you said, it's not all of them. And what we see with the newer politicians is an attempt to, you know, go along a new line of progressive politics. And so I welcome the progressive politics, and I welcome that type of productive debate and discussion. And I know last week I would have referred to an example of two parliamentarians, and I don't want to refer to the same example again, but I still do have much hope for this country, especially with the new upcoming politicians and the generation. And I'll give you an example with Farley and the progressive politics that they have adopted even in Tobago, even with the minority leader in Tobago as well, Kelvin.
You think it's progressive?
I think it is progressive because what we're seeing there is that we're sticking to the nature of policy and issues, and it's not much, or you see a little jab here and there, but not much of character assassination and fear-mongering and the, you know, painting persons as villains as they may be.
In that regard, do you think the current teaching and the current style of politics we see within the Tobago House of Assembly could set an example for TNT as a whole?
Oh, absolutely. When Mr. Augustine would have gotten that mandate of 15, he got 14 seats out of the 15.
He lost the last one by 3.
Correct.
3 votes, I think.
Yeah. That I think was Darrell Spring Wim, if I'm not mistaken. And what Trinidad and Tobago, you know, I spoke on a show before when that happened, and one of the things that we were discussing, we said, when Tobago speaks, we must listen. And it is because Tobago was able to defy the political odds, you know, being ran by PNM for umpteen years, and to go with a new vehicle to take the Tobago space forward in the mandate that the PDP at that time would have presented. And I think that was a good space for the country. It was a good signal. Now, it is no secret that the Farley-led group would have gotten a number of younger persons involved in the political discussion. And I think that also would have played a bigger impact in the voter turnout in the last THA election and, well, the result of it. And so Trinidad, we can take a few, you know, there are a few lessons to learn from the Tobagonians.
You know what, I've said it on this platform quite repeatedly, where I say one nation, two attitudes. I often find myself a bit confused. How do you explain the attitude adopted by Tobagonians? And it's something that cannot be adopted by Trinidadians. I'm not saying that it's absolutely perfect. Don't get me wrong, Tobago has its flaws, as does Trinidad. But you're absolutely right. What happened in 2021, what we saw happening in 2021 in Tobago was quite astounding, and the build-up to that was quite astounding. And the sort of conversation that we were having with the individuals who are now secretaries in the THA, Even the gentleman who, Mr. Kelvin Morris, who is the minority leader in the Tobago House Assembly, the conversations are very much constructive. Oftentimes, when I have conversations with, I wouldn't say with all, but many individuals, in fact, one of our colleagues, Camille Pascal, reminded us of an interview that he had with Keith Scotland about a year or two ago. And even in that interview, this is a gentleman who is the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain, East Port of Spain. He was completely out of touch with the people whom he represents. And I wonder the people whom he represents if they're even in touch with him. He makes the argument that he's involved and he's very active and they're doing so many family days and sport days and this and that and the other. And I'm not going to deny that or doubt that. But it comes back to the level or the type of relationship the electorate has with their representatives here in TNT. And I often see that in Tobago, the type of relationship that the electorate has with their representative, bear in mind the population is significantly smaller.
Well, what we can see for sure with this present THA, especially under the leadership of Farley Augustine, and even the way that he's running his own political organization, there's this open space for discourse within the party and also in terms of the administration, where they go out to different areas in Tobago and they meet and greet with the Tobagonians as it relates to issues affecting the island. Now, and I want to touch on the political party side, because that primary side will impact what we are offered nationally at any sort of election. And so when we speak about Mr. Scotland, and I had a glimpse of the interview, and I too was a bit taken aback by that interview. But that's why, and I've said this consistently on this show, particularly, that what happens at the primary stage, meaning what happens internally in both the PNM and the UNC, will impact the political product that we get that is on our ballot. And so, as much as we may be dissatisfied with both parties in certain iterations, it's important that we still find a way to have an opinion, whether inside or outside of the party, because what they do there will impact what we get nationally in a campaign and on the ballot. And,
yes, but the PNM and the United National Congress will make the argument that we are also in touch with the electorate, with the people here in TNT. The United National Congress will make the argument that we are always having these forums. For example, the recently concluded crime forums that they were having, crime talks, as they say. And the People's National Movement will say the same thing. They've had conversations with the Prime Minister or community cottage meetings over the last few months, leading up to the local government election and even after. So they're going to make the same argument, Chris.
Well, they can make that argument, but the numbers don't lie. And what we do know is that we had a dwindling voter turnout from 2010 to now, and that's not something I'm making up. And so when we look at the last local government election with a voter turnout of 30.34%, what we can derive from that is that 70% of the country, which is majority of the country, rejected both the Kamla-led United National Congress and the Rowley-led People's National Movement. So, I mean, they can say what they want to say, but the numbers don't lie. And what we also know, also within the UNC, is that an internal election is due this year. And there has been a lot of, I think, back and forth and pushback from the current executive there. And I don't understand why there'd be this sort of pushback, but the numbers don't lie. And I think both the UNC and the PNM, if they are interested in really national development and getting more persons to participate in the electoral process, then they need to change their strategy and provide a bit more substance when it comes to not just a campaign, but also when in office.
All right, so for the majority of our conversations over the last few weeks, we focused a lot more on the politicians and the political parties and the organizations that exist. Let's put that aside for the moment. What about the attitude of Trinbagonians, whom I might say I'm very disappointed as well? The attitude of most Trinbagonians who I meet, who I speak to, not only is it to a great extent, very divisive. I say divisive, and I make no bones about it. A lot of people are still racially charged. I like to put that, right? Mostly the older generations whom I meet and speak to. And it's disappointing. And quite frankly, it's, you know, in this modern age, in all that we've faced and we've gone through, it's sickening. But apart from that racial division, racial tension that exists, I get the impression that most Trinbagonians simply do not care about what policies are put on the table. For example, if the United National Congress puts a policy on the table, and it might be very, very good, it might be beneficial to all, but the People's National Movement say no. PNM supporters are obviously going to object to that. If the PNM puts policies on the table and the United National Congress says no, UNC supporters are going to object to that. Then at the same time, if one party rejects another party's policies or proposals, but then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, adopts it, we all become hypocrites and suddenly support it. Yeah. So the attitude of the electorate on the ground has to change, Chris. As much as we are blaming to a great extent, and they are not without fault, the political organizations and the politicians that have been there for generations, quite frankly, we could preach as much as we want to about them offering something new. If the mindset of Trinbagonians do not change, if they do not actually crawl out of the abyss that they found themselves in and they're keeping themselves in, we are not going to make any progress whatsoever, because they have political offerings out there. They may not be the best or the most favorable, but there are offerings out there.
So organizations typically take on the DNA of its leader. And I want to say, even in our country, we take on the DNA of our leaders. And I think we cannot divorce our leaders from the attitudes that Trinbagonians may have. And even if it may be a bit, you know, pessimistic. And the reason I say so is because, well, two factors actually. One is the engagement that we would have gotten for the past, I say, decade, and how our major political organizations would have chosen to engage with us, the population, and the things they would have said. And I think they both have a target audience. I don't know if it's deliberate. I hope it is not deliberate, but they know exactly what they do when it's time to stir up the so-called bases. And it's unfortunate, and we need something better in this country in terms of progression. I see there are younger politicians within the UNC attempting for betterment of the organization, so hopefully that goes somewhere. But of course, the second factor is social studies, which we spoke about last week, that we need in this country to ensure that politics and history is a part of the curriculum. Because for persons to only know, young persons, young voters, to only know the significant days in our calendar, who the current and past prime ministers and presidents were, I think that is not going to help their decision making when it comes to make a critical decision. I mean, who you put in office is a very critical decision. It's going to impact the entire country.
I don't disagree with your first comments about a political organization. Its DNA is reflective of its leader. I don't disagree with that. But I'd like to add to that. I also think that a political leader is reflective of the people whom supports them or puts them there. Not necessarily all, but the majority. For example, again, repeating myself from the same platform weeks past, if it is that a politician knows that it is easy to fool an electorate, that it is easy to talk, I can say one thing today, I could say another thing tomorrow.
You know how you just said
nothing
this?
Hold on, nothing is going to change, nothing is going to get better. Or you know what, I can just go out, all of a sudden, you know what, we've got elections around the corner, for example, all of a sudden, things getting done. Everybody getting a food basket, everybody getting a food hamper. And the attitude is, I take it, and you'll get my votes.
Right.
But then over the course of the next 4.5 years, nothing. Politicians will adapt to that. That's beneficial to them.
So you see how you are speaking about this in such a normalized manner. I think that is part of the problem as well. That they have cultivated, and we have participated in this, you know. We have participated in this. We have actually enabled this behavior as well. But we have normalized that paving roads a few months before an election means something. It's campaign time. We know that, you know. And you know what? We're talking about constitutional reform, and I'm saying this to be facetious because early in the morning I'm joking, but maybe we should have elections every year. All the roads will be paved, you know? Maybe.
I voted in out of 30%. Having elections every year, boy, that might be very depressing. The campaign will never stop, but you're right. Things might actually get done. Things might get done.
Things might actually get done. I think so. And I think we need to be careful as well in this country.
He's joking, by the way. Just repeating what he said. Yeah. He's joking.
No, I am. But I think we should also be careful as well in how we stir up our political organizations, members, to attack independent institutions in this country. I think we need to be very careful because that is a road we tend to go down around not just elections, but any time there's an issue that warrants a discussion or an opinion surrounding an independent office. It tends to be attacked. And I think we need to be very careful in this country.
What independent offices remain? I ask that question because I agree with you, but I also believe that the individuals charged with such responsibilities, the office holders, also have to do their part to keep or ensure that their office remains independent.
Well, we see someone right now, the Auditor General. She is, you know, doing her part, I think. I think she's doing a good job so far in ensuring her duty of office and her oath and, you know, in keeping with her constitutional duties, I think she has done her job, you know. Of course, that is now becoming a bacchanal in the public domain, but I really want Trinidad and Tobago to stay away from that. This is a very important issue in the country. It is a discrepancy of, I think, $3.4 billion. You have...
somewhere between 2.6 and 3.4.
Somewhere, yeah, but here's the thing. I believe, first of all, the Auditor General is an independent office. I think it's the Section 8 in the Constitution, subsection 117. She's an independent officer. So let us understand that primarily. And
well, the office is independent.
The office is independent.
Okay.
And so she is allowed to, she's required to get all the documents, whatever documents she wants, I believe, from the Treasury Department and the Ministry of Finance, to substantiate the figure that she had to treat with. I think is $64 billion, if I'm not mistaken, give or take, whatever the points, whatever. And the deadline to submit those documents would have been the 31st of January. And then she's expected to give an opinion by the 30th of April. Now, she's expected to give an opinion. It would have to be a good one, it could be a bad one, it could be a different one, but she's expected to give an opinion. And so what we must stay away from in this country is for any executive to use its power to influence anything that is independent. I think we need to be careful. We need to be very careful in this country. So I commend her on her duty so far. I hope this doesn't become some new political football to kick, right? Because this is a certain amount of money, a big amount of money. We need to find out where it is, what happened, and that kind of thing.
My opinion on this entire situation, I believe I expressed it on Monday on a different platform on the station, and I simply said I'm not satisfied with the reason given by the Minister of Finance, but I also said hopefully it is resolved. Hopefully it is resolved. Yeah, I'm not too pleased with the Minister of Finance, his position and what he has expressed publicly. That being said, I could probably be completely wrong, but I await to see the outcome.
I agree, and also I think when the Minister of Finance attempts to blame, public servants, the buck stops with you, right? Because if we got this right, you'd be boasting. You were the Minister of Finance. It did so well.
Yeah, but to a certain extent, I hear you. I
Yes.
agree, but to a certain extent, isn't it the jobs and responsibilities of public servants in getting these figures to ensure that this financial report is completed?
No, I agree. But the thing is, he leads the ministry. And so it is either your responsibility or not your responsibility. So I understand his position. I get it. But I also think we need to be careful in how we attempt to shed blame in this country as well. Because the reality is, and we in this country have a way in how we look at the public sector, right? We don't have much confidence when you listen to Trinbagonians speak about the public sector. And so the way that we speak about our public servants, we have to be very careful. We can't always blame them for everything. And the other thing about this is that this is not the first time I'm seeing this current government extend its arm when it comes to the independent institutions. We saw it with the debacle with the Police Service Commission as well. And so this is a critical issue that we must pay attention to. I hope Trinidad and Tobago is paying attention, and we must have an opinion on it as well. So if you don't know what's going on, I encourage everyone, listen to, I think you all discuss
Everyone
this.
has an opinion, Chris. If you are, you're going to get one of two responses.
Correct. And listen to
The
all
Minister of
sides.
Finance, he misleading all of us.
Yeah.
Or that lady who is the Auditor General, she had to be anti-government, anti-payments. She misleading all of us. Those are the two opinions that exist publicly. Yeah?
Well, I heard some other opinions that existed. I believe his former minister in the Ministry of Finance, Mariano Brown, he has given an opinion on this as well. So we need to ventilate this issue, and I hope that we get it right. Because you see, when we get these things right as a country, we as a people have gotten it right. And I don't think this should be something that is another bacchanal. Already
has turned out to be.
I think it may have,
but
but we want to stay away from that. Remember, what we wish to see in this country is progressive politics. We've got to have productive conversations. That is the ambition. It's not always the reality, but we could have ambition. Keaton, we could have ambition.
I find myself conflicted sometimes with a lot that is said on this platform, but because you're right. It's not necessarily reality. We want it to be that way. What are we doing to get it to that way? But ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, let's take a break here on the program. We're going to regroup, and when we return, we'll continue this morning's conversation. So we'll be right back.
Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful. The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to introduce once more to the program an individual who is no stranger, Mr. Chris Hussain. Good morning, Chris, once more.
Good morning, Keaton. So I am very excited for this next segment, which we are joined via Zoom by the Junior Chamber International, and we have two representatives, Ms. Toya Louison, who is the Executive Assistant Skills Development of JCI West Indies, and of course Ms. Serena Borzell, who is the Vice President of JCI Trinidad. So I want to welcome them to the program. Good morning. Good morning to both of you all.
Hello, ladies.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Lady in red, I think you were a bit muted. Good morning.
I'm on.
Oh, hello, welcome.
Yes. So I want to know, because I know that JCI is celebrating its 75th anniversary this year. And so for the wider population, we would like to know, what is JCI and what do you all do?
I think the most honorable Vice President is able to take that question.
So JCI is a global organization, one of the largest global organizations of youth leaders between 18 to 40 years. And JCI Trinidad is just a small local organization of that global organization. And we're under JCI West Indies. And what we do is that we build development for youth leaders and youth professionals between the ages of 18 to 40. So as you know, Toya is EA for skills development. One of the trainings that we had was in skills, which we did was effective meetings. We have other skills trainings such as effective leadership. We offer opportunities. As of right now, our president is in Paraguay, and one of the most major events of being in Paraguay is the Area Conference of Americas, and one of the most major competitions there is Creative Youth Entrepreneurship. So there's a lot of things that JCI does. We build communities through different projects that we hold throughout the year. We meet at World Congress, discuss different issues, and we meet at National Convention, JCI West Indies, just to discuss and to build our youth organizations.
Ms. Lewison, I'm curious to know, with respect to leadership, particularly leadership in the West Indies, what do you think are the skills that are necessary, the skills that are required in order for young leaders not only to fully develop their potential, but also allow them to develop those around them and hopefully those whom they serve?
Yeah, definitely. Youth leaders in the Caribbean, as we know right now, they are heavily engaged in advocacy, education-wise, employment-wise, all around. We are able to contribute to that growth of our young leaders by providing them with a number, as the VPI has explained, a number of trainings under different portfolios that really do help and assist them. And we do this for free most times. Traditionally, we do it for free. So we, as she said, we do effective training, we did effective meetings, we have something called project management. You know, these are trainings that you would generally get at a cost, and we provide them for free for members as well as non-members.
Now, I also would like to know, Toya, if it is someone is interested in being a part of JCI, how do they go about doing this? Because I know that Ms. Borzell, she would have explained that this organization spans from 18 years to 40 years. So for persons looking on or interested, how do they join or participate in some of these skills trainings that you all may offer?
Well, very straightforward. You can join via any social media platform. Look us up, JCI Trinidad, and you'll be provided with links and such what to get to us directly. However, I want to expand a bit. Though we do carry membership 18 to 40 years, we do reach and engage persons before 18, sorry. We start from 14 to 18 with a JCI Junior Club. We also have an alumni club, which goes from 40 to, you understand?
Yes.
And so we are able to capture and engage all ages across the board.
Miss Boisel, what I'm curious to know as well is that this is not just Trinidad and Tobago that the GCI is serving. It is across the Caribbean, across the world actually. But in particular, what we're seeing over the last few years is actually a constant push for CARICOM to become more active, more of a role in the West Indies of tomorrow. So as part of GCI and their engagement of young people, how does GCI actually represent the strength that is CARICOM? How does it push CARICOMism amongst those youth that they engage?
So CARICOM is a regional integration, and I think GCI represents just how unified the Caribbean can be, right? We are 7 to 8 chapters, and we work very well together. I've seen us come together on multiple occasions, and we have done projects regionally where you see us in different locations, different areas at the same time participating in something. One of the biggest examples of that, I believe, would be World Cleanup Day, where at the same time all of these chapters are initiating a project to clean up their environment and to build world environmental health. And I think that is one of the most effective examples that I can give of just how well GCI West Indies works together. We meet each other once a month. We have effective communication between each other. I recently had a project facilitated by the executive vice president of GCI West Indies, and we were online right here in Trinidad, and she's in Antigua. And I think that alone shows how we can work together and be unified as a Caribbean integration.
I also know that this is a non-profit organization, correct? Yes. Now, what I want to know is that you would interact with a number of young persons, and so you would have an appreciation for some of the issues or, you know, advocacy issues which young people may, you know, face. And so, what are some of those issues in interacting with your membership? What are some of those issues that you would have come across?
One of the biggest issues that I think I have come across and just recently is mental health. We don't take seriously the mental health of not just even young persons, but persons within the region on the whole. There are a lot of people who are suffering silently and are not saying anything, and they don't have a safe space to come out and speak. And I think the family unit that we try to build within GCI allows that space, even if it's not the entire membership or the entire organization being aware, just having one person there who you can turn to and say, hey, I'm going through this right now, I can't, right? That allows us to be more aware and to properly work together to now then help this person and then to help each other to be better.
Coming back to you, Ms. Lewison, I'm curious to know if whether or not you're seeing more and more people. It's something that Chris and I were speaking about this morning before you two ladies joined us. Whether or not you're actually seeing more and more young people willing to play an active role, willing to participate, whether or not the youth of which you guys interact with and engage with, whether or not it's just, you know what, I'm doing this training, I'm acquiring these leadership skills. I mean, what happens after that?
I can say that I am seeing a genuine interest in locally here in JCI Trinidad. As a matter of fact, one of the discussions we've had at our board level locally is that the young professionals are very busy with their advocacy, right? If it's not education, climate change, employment, politics, they are very busy. And, we don't take it for granted persons' time when they do find an interest in JCI and able to contribute on that level.
I also want to know, because there's this conversation, and I know as well, within the youth space, that our participation where it comes to politics in this country, and we all know, because the Vice President, you spoke about mental health, and I want to agree with you, that is one of the more topical discussions, and I would like to see one day that, a work policy include mental health for organizations and of course their members. Now, the political process right now is starved for youth participation. And what do you think our leaders looking on, all leaders looking on? Because we have an election next year. And so there are campaigns that are going to come in the next election. What do you wish to see as a young professional put forward for nation building in this country?
I would love to see that the efforts, because over the years I've seen there has been a lot of efforts to engage youths into the political system and to have our voices heard, but you will never, there's a difference between having our voices heard and actually putting what we say into action. So that is what I would like to see. I would like to see what we say put into action. I would like to see more of the more popular advocates that we have between the political system and between the youth advocacy, because there's a lot of them. I would love to see them more present because, excuse me, pardon?
No, I'm not so sure what happened there, but continue with your response.
I would love to see them more present because they're present within just having our voices heard. But what comes after that, right? How can you then put them into the system so that we can see the work that they are capable of? Because a lot of us are capable, a lot of us are prepared, and a lot of us are ready. It is just for us to be there and to have the opportunity to be there more actively than just inviting us to a forum to hear us speak.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you, Ms. Lewison, what would you like to see?
I cannot not echo the same sentiments of VP Serena, because it is an ongoing conversation.
Do you think the advocacy is making a difference too? Do you think it actually is working? Our youth, as you said, that our voices are strong and quite possibly they're being heard, not necessarily listened to, but they're being heard. Do you think the advocacy is working, or do you think young people are just straining their voices?
I think to some end it is. Organizations like ours are being recognized, most predominantly recently discussions with the Ministry of Youth and National Development has become more, we've been engaged a lot, to get ideas, and this is not in a formal meeting setting. This is a gentle call. Look, I know your organization does XYZ. Can you recommend? Can you, we have that type of conversations, which we're very grateful for, because that means that, as VP said, it's not a matter of taking us into a room, all organizations, and have us there for a period. It means that you actually consider what we do contribute. So I do think that we are being heard individually as youths. I would like to see us stand up a bit more, especially on social media. That level of advocacy must be held in those spaces where it's easy to deter or to encourage persons to do the right or the wrong thing, or to have their voice out there. And I don't want to touch on anything too much because I really want to give VP the floor to have a say. So, but yes, those are some of the things that I can see, and that's my contribution with regards to the youth and our advocacy.
I think VP Bozel actually had an opinion on that as well.
Yes, I know. She's a political science student, She has an opinion. I know she's really excited about this topic.
I know that this year you all celebrate 75 years of being an organization, a non-profit organization. What does that mean to JCI now?
It gives us an opportunity to really reflect to reflect on the impact our organization has made on young professionals in Trinidad. You know, it's a chance to acknowledge our achievements, recognize the contributions and all of that. And at 75 years, you know, it's either a diamond, a silver, a jubilee. 75 years is most appropriate at this time right now, as we're now having a discussion on advocacy and all of that, to really celebrate that we are not, these things are not only now happening, it has been happening. We have contributed in a big way towards Trinidad and Tobago. We have some notable members of the past. I don't want to dare call names and be incorrect, but Ken Gordon, we always hear the story about the guy who introduced Trinidad to us. You know, and those type of persons. We have a number of ministers and senators today. The Honorable McClatchy, Alison West, you know, all of those persons who have and continue to contribute through this legacy brought by JCI over the last 75 years.
Does that suggest that one day we might see both you ladies actually in a more executive role, a more
role?
Yes.
I expect high. I expect high. I have high expectations. Sorry, of the board of JCI Trinidad.
No, that's excellent. Well, as we're getting to the end of this particular interview, part of the conversations that Chris and I have been having is the fact that whilst there is a lot of dismay and frustration amongst young people, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but around the West Indies, with what is happening and questions surrounding about, you know, what is happening today, what does it translate for tomorrow, we also pointed out that there's still a lot of hope, as you all have exemplified by the quality and caliber of young people out there and what it is they're capable of achieving. So I'm going to start with the Honourable Vice President first, and then we'll come to the Honourable Executive Assistants. But what is it that, what's a message that you can share to young people in respect to not giving up and playing a more active role, but also to the older generations and their role of supporting and nourishing young people?
Well, when it comes to me, for example, I sometimes think my age is a limit for me because I'm young, right? Don't let that stop you. Advocacy starts anywhere. From the moment you have a problem or you see a problem within your society, stand up and speak about it. And don't let anyone tell you that you don't know or that you don't understand. Do your research, try to understand the topic to the best of your capability, and go out there and speak on it, right? Don't be afraid to join youth organizations. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I sometimes have that fear myself, thinking that, what if this is a stupid question? Don't be afraid. Ask it. Literally. No, there's no wrong question, and there's always going to be an answer. And when it comes to being more present, you can make opportunities for yourself. There are a lot of young persons who are currently building their own opportunities. And if you have any, you can't find them, you can reach out to organizations and ask for opportunities, join them and gain opportunities, and a lot of them are taking on. So don't be afraid.
Wow.
Miss Lewison, your closing comments?
Definitely. To add to what VPI contributed, there's a saying within my family that we seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. That is a mantra that we follow, and that is something I like to encourage young people always. Continue seeking knowledge, continue seeking your space anywhere you go. As you know, I don't want to, VP really exemplified exactly what I wanted to impart. Continue making your space in any circle, any opportunity you get. Stand on what you believe on.
Indeed. Well, ladies, thank you so very much for joining both Chris and I on the program this morning. Thank you for your time and for the efforts of the GCI. Celebrating 75 years, congratulations. Hopefully we'll be around in 75 years to have a follow-up interview. Have a good one. Take care. All the best.
You too. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ms. Serena Boiselle, Vice President for JCI International, the Trinidad and Tobago Board. and of course Miss Lewison, Miss Toya Lewison, joining us on the program this morning. Thank you very much to the ladies. Chris, I think we should take a break. Come back as we digest all that was said, and we'll actually get into the last part of this morning's edition of AM Prime. We'll be right back.
This is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. AmCham CEO believes fixing environmental and social issues can save TNT. San Fernando businesswoman robbed at her home. Call to launch flights to Puerto Rico. Now for details. CEO of AmCham TNT Neera Tiwari said that the chamber has a history of assisting small and medium businesses to branch out into environmental and ethical best practices. Speaking at the second annual Environmental, Social and Governance Convention 2024 at the International Waterfront Center Hyatt yesterday, Tiwari said that AmCham may not be the first group to adopt embracing environmental and social issues. However, it is trying to create a more fulfilled country.
And we at AmCham Trinidad and Tobago firmly believe this, long before the conversation about ESG, and I'm not saying that we're unique, I'm just saying that for all of our existence, every single board and leadership of AmCham Trinidad and Tobago has seen our role as doing more than just helping businesses do more business, although we think that by helping businesses do more business in an ethical way, we will achieve that goal, and that goal is to improve society and make Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean, at the very least, more vibrant, a better place to live, and create the conditions for more fulfilled people in these spaces.
San Fernando CID are investigating the robbery of businesswoman Joelle D'Souza on Wednesday night. 53-year-old D'Souza was at her Palmy's home when 5 men entered at around 7:25 p.m. One of the masked men entered a bedroom where D'Souza was located, while the other 4 searched the home. Police said D'Souza was slapped and her hands bound. The men ransacked her home, taking documents from a safe inside her bedroom, as well as Louis Vuitton handbags, 2 Apple iPads, and other items. Police retrieved closed-circuit camera footage at the scene. A search was conducted of the area, but the suspects were not found. Caribbean Airlines is ready to take you to San Juan, Puerto Rico. CAL announced that it will launch flights 3 times a week from July 14, 2024. Pending regulatory approval from the Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority and the government of Barbados, CAL plans to fly via Barbados on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. The routine flights operate on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Flights will be operated by Caribbean Airlines ATR 72-600s with 68 to 72 economy class seats, and tickets go on sale on May the 2nd, and prices start at US $192 from Trinidad. Well, that's the news on the hour on WESN. I'm Sean Michael Small. Thanks for watching.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh, available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas, and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. Imagine a world where arguments don't exist. CICR is a full-service conflict resolution company that offers mediation training and workshops for all. In 2024, our 40-hour workshops are back, giving you all the tools you need to become a certified mediator in Trinidad and Tobago. Want to know more? Call us at 768-6778 or visit our website. Let's work together to make the world a better place.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. It's the final lap of the last week of April, first week of May. We're somewhere around there, actually. It was, today's the 3rd of May, 2024. And I can't believe that we're nearing that halfway mark for 2024.
Yeah.
Time is flying, boy. Time is flying.
Yeah.
You know what that means? You know what that means? It means one of the most important years in our history is right around the corner, because the elections that we are going to experience next year into 2026, next year is national elections, Tobago House of Assembly elections, the following year I believe is local government elections, and boy oh boy, it's not going to be lost for content in the next few months.
No, we're not going to be lost, but we have an election before that. We have you see, I agree, national elections are important. We have a primary election in June of this year. There's a primary election.
So, Chris, I know what you're referring to.
And that will influence what we have on the ballot come next year. We must pay attention to all elections.
I know what you're saying. I know where you're going with this. It's a fair, you stressed on this. I get that. I understand that. But you have to understand, I am not one to push conspiracy theories. But I'm going to push one this morning.
Oh gosh.
I'm going to push one this morning. The current executive of the Opposition United National Congress, since you brought it up, no, you said we have a primary election in June. You didn't have to say what elections there were in June. But you said we have a primary. My theory is that the current executive of the United National Congress, which is inclusive of the opposition leader, has some sort of social contract with the current executive of the People's National Movement.
Why you say that?
Because the biggest asset to the PNM is the opposition leader and the current executive to the United National Congress. And if they can't see that, if they can't realize that, then to me, it's obvious. There is no benefit. I mean, listen, the opposition leader no longer has the privilege of flying in a helicopter whenever she wants to. And though she may have the office, the title holder, and though she may have the full-time security and there's some perks to go with it, there's no benefit to her staying there.
Okay, but we need to create some context for what you said,
Sure.
Because we have an audience listening.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Why would you proffer that she's an asset to the PNM? How do we, and I think we need to be careful in when we say those things, because I'm seeing a dangerous theory being set by the current UNC executive. There are some members who accused anyone who challenged the status quo, which would have been to hold elections when they're due, are being called PNM now.
Okay, hold on. Let me interject you there for a moment. Why is it that the current executive of the United National Congress is so protective of Kamla Persad-Bissessar, but not necessarily protective of their own constitution, which says that elections, national executive elections, not leadership elections, but national executive elections are due in June? So why are they so protective of the opposition leader?
I think they may have a self-interest in it.
Well,
I think the arrangement benefits them, but when
you said benefits her. Does it benefit her as well?
Both of them. But when you said she's an asset to the PNM, what we need to understand in this country is that for the past 10 years, which is a decade now, right? 2025 will make it how many years now, boy? Yes, a decade in opposition, from 2015 to 25. the current political leader of the UNC has not been good enough to increase the voter turnout.
You tell that to Dr. Kirkmehu.
As she would have, well, Dr. Kirkmehu would have agreed with this statement in 2014, 2013. As you know, he would have been, involved in protests with Dr. Rowley. So I think he has to answer to that first.
Money talks, boy.
I don't know if money talks, but
money
I think...
Talks. Of course in TNT money talks,
I think he needs to answer for that, account to the population about the things that he would have said with Dr. Rowley. As a matter of fact, Dr. Kirkmehu was part and parcel of the problem that would have caused Mrs. Prasad Bissasan and the UNC to lose office.
You tell that to
because he would have protested against her in favor of something else. Now, anyways, put that aside. So for the past 10 years, what we would have had was a dwindling voter turnout. And Mrs. Prasad Bissasan and her leadership should be good enough to inspire a larger voter turnout. And the way you test the performance of a political leader is through your elections. And what we do know is that the voter turnout has dwindled, and she would have lost a significant amount of support which she would have had in 2010. So when you say she's an asset to the PNM, well, in that way, then I can understand what you're speaking about. But I don't know about the conspiracy theory about working with PNM and all of that. Huh?
No, hold on.
I know you didn't say that.
Hold on. Huh?
But that could be interpreted by persons.
I have no problems with people interpreting it. Take my words and you can interpret it however you want to. My opinion, it's not much of an opinion more than it is a theory.
Yes.
Because I study political science as well, so we're always coming up with theories to explain everything. But Chris, you have to understand that as much as I see that the current executive, particularly the opposition leader, is the best asset to the People's National Movement, the best asset to the United National Congress should have been the cabinet and their governance of this country, this nation, over the last 4 years, heading into 5, right? That should have been their best, campaign. There's so much that you could have argued against. There's a strong campaign could have been put on the table. A strategic plan could have been put on the table. As far as I'm concerned, those efforts have not been made. Even when I listen to what is being said in Parliament, and it goes both ways. It goes both ways. This is why I'm saying, as much as Cabinet is an asset to the PNM, Cabinet should have been an asset to the United National Congress as well. They haven't utilized that. They haven't used it. This is why currently the government could get away with a lot of things.
Yeah.
A weak opposition is also reflective of a strong government, right? I'm not saying that this current government is strong by any means. I think, as a young person, I'm very much disappointed, even to the extent that I'm afraid for the future of TNT. And whilst I agree that there's hope from young people, is whether or not young people will make that push. But at the same time, let us be real. The UNC has done very little to inspire confidence amongst the voters, to the extent that the PNM don't have to do anything else. They literally don't have to do anything else. Next year's election is going to be interesting. Are you anticipating that the PNM is going to campaign strongly, or do you think that they're going to campaign like they did in 2020? I don't think 2020 was a strong campaign. I think to a certain extent COVID helped the People's National Movement win that election.
Well, it will depend on the political opponent of the People's National Movement. If it is the current status quo, which is Mrs. Prasad Bissasan and her executive, well, the PNM has proven to this country that they know exactly how to win that election when it's up against.
So you think Rowley can win an election in 2025 if he went back up?
Given the current status quo, we have a voter turnout. We must look at the numbers. The last local government election showed us in this country that persons are not interested in voting for the Rowley-led PNM or the Mrs. Prasad Bissasan-led UNC. And so what we have right now is basically the bases fighting each other.
But do you think Rowley can win an election in 2019?
I think if it is that the current status quo remains the same, he has proven in the past 10 years that he can beat Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar. And so the UNC has to take note of that. Now, I want to touch on something. There's this conversation surrounding the labeling of 5 MPs within the UNC as 5 dissidents. 5 dissidents.
Your favorite topic.
But because it impacts, you see, what happens there will impact the election next year. People need to understand that. Now, when we say someone is dissenting, what we must ask is, what are they dissenting to?
Or against, yeah.
Or what are they against? And what we do know is that they are against the constitution of the UNC being disrespected, with elections being deferred, or conversations and campaigns to justify the deferring of elections. So what we do know is that they are for upholding the UNC constitution. So then the question now is, so if they are for the UNC's constitution being upheld, what is the other side against?
Chris, I'm going to pause on that. I'm going to ask you straight up. Are you a supporter of Kamla Prasad-Bissessar?
Am I a supporter of Kamla Prasad-Bissessar? Why would you ask, am I a supporter of Kamla Prasad-Bissessar? As a young person in this country...
Given your commentary over the last weeks, I asked that question first. Because my follow-up question would have been whether or not you are a supporter of these 5 individuals who have been labeled as dissenting.
Yeah. So... And I'm happy you asked that question, because I will be allowed to answer it frontally. Young people in this country are not necessarily, at least the young people I interact with, so let me categorize that. I would have served on a student guild at the university I was a part of. You would have always introduced me on this program as a former national and regional youth parliamentarian. And so I interact with a number of young persons from day to day. And within that group in which I interact, what we do know is that we don't really support personalities. So when someone asks me if I'm a supporter of Kamla Prasad-Bissessar, the question that one must ask is if I'm a supporter of her politics, if I'm a supporter of her track record, if I'm a supporter of her policy. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar has done a lot for this country. When she served as Prime Minister, as you said, and I agree with you, she has a very good track record. But the issue surrounding Kamla Prasad-Bissessar it's not that, you know. The issue surrounding is her ability to win elections. It's her ability to get the United National Congress into government. And so I hold the position that for the past 10 years, she has been unable to do that. And so it is concerning. And so a new political product must be offered by the UNC to increase the voter turnout in an election to make it more favorable for their chance to win at the polls. And so if I am in support of the 5, what I call them the Fab 5, if I'm in support of the Fab 5, I am in support of the position which they have taken. They have taken a very, I think, holding a very high moral and good ethical position. They have said very clinically, Mr. Parry would have come out, he said that elections must be called when they are due. There's a NATEX due. He said he loves the political leader and he would like the election to be called. And I see nothing wrong with that position.
In that regard, I respect your response. I understand your response. You said new political offerings on the part of the United National Congress. If another party puts forward an offering, a fresh start, parties have done that. There's Hope, for example. Nothing against Hope, but at the same time, Hope is basically full of regurgitated politicians, right? So that's one option. Hope also has now a strategic relationship with the Congress of the People, whom I did not realize was still active, right? Then there is also the PEP, and the PEP at this point is not new, although the PEP is a one-man party. How unfortunate for all those who have worked so hard in the PEP.
So then you shouldn't say PEP then.
All right.
You should say Mr. Philip Edward
Well,
Alexander.
the PE in PEP stands for Philip Edward Philip Edward Party, right? PEP.
Oh, very good.
Right? So you have to understand that.
Are you renaming the party?
Well, no, I don't even know their constitution exists. I don't know if I can do that. Then you have the NTA on the part of Gary Griffith, and arguably the NTA as well is a one-man party. And Mr. Griffith might take unkindly to that, but it's true. I like to hear from more people within the NTA, more of its members, more of its executives, and I would like to hear more so about its policies when it comes to dealing with youth development, when it comes to dealing with agriculture, when it comes to dealing with sustainable, a sustainable future for Tobago's energy industry. I'd like to hear more about finance and economy. I'd like to hear more about that rather than everything always being about the Commissioner of Police or national security. Those are very important issues. But I'm saying, as a political organization, you need to tell me what you're offering. At the same time, when we take a look at the People's National Movement, they're not going to tell you what they're offering. They're going to use the last 4 years as an argument for another 5 years. Well, by the time that comes, it's going to be 5 years anyway. And the United National Congress, well, we see what their campaigns are like. So if another party comes along, right? If another party comes along, it's not established, fresh faces, critical, constructive conversations, a new way of thinking are going ahead. Do you think that you as a young person could support that?
Yes.
It's not, no, I say that because you said new offerings from the United National Congress. My interpretation of that is you support only the UNC.
No.
I am asking whether or not you will support another entity.
I said this last week. I'm glad that you brought that up. I said this last week, that younger persons, and again I want to categorize it in the younger people that I interact with, that we are not loyal to any, we are not bounded to any party, right? And that, I'm not saying that to say that older persons are, but I'm saying that specifically the people I've interacted with, generally, when it comes to loyalty to party and those kind of things, we have not been introduced to the political organizations that some persons would have been introduced to. And I wanna explain. The Basdeo Pandey version of the UNC, there's a lot to be proud of there. So I understand, you know, love and loyalty to UNC. But the UNC now, I mean, under Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, given some of the persons that she has under her, I don't know if that is something to be so proud of. Even when you look at the People's National Movement, when you look at what it was founded by even the former political leader, I understand the pride almost. I understand that. But you have to understand, for us looking on now, some of us, this is going to be our first election we're going to vote in. And so there's not much to be proud of in this country. So the question that you asked me was, if it is, I will support something new, something targeted, something strategic, something that is offering a critical conversation to this country. Of course, young persons, of course, I will support something that is productive and progressive and better to the country. This is about Trinidad and Tobago's betterment, you know. Never forget that, you know. Maybe I think some people have forgotten that, but at least for me, I know that I have not forgotten that. Now, I do see within the UNC, with the Fab Five, I do see with them the sort of progressive politics that I would like to see throughout the political landscape, where you can say, here's what, an election is due, it is in keeping with the constitution within our party, and so let us have it. I see no issue with that. I see that as a very good test to how you may operate in government. Because if that is how you are looking to run your organization, then that's a good step.
But then, okay, and I'm being specific here. I am being specific. You said this is not loyalty to one political organization, right? So given the basis of your argument or your justification, the terming of the Fab Five and the adherence to the Constitution, the running of the party and the organization is a testament to how you would most likely be in government. The People's National Movement have adhered to their Constitution. They've held their elections. They've abided by the rules. The People's National Movement, there's a lot of conflict, but they seem a lot more united than the United National Congress. Could you support the PNM?
So, the thing with Dr. Rowley would have held together, I think his bench had 12 members when he was in opposition. And the People's Partnership had 29 members.
An excellent opposition.
Correct. Dr. Rowley had a track record at least in the PNM, as being no nonsense, as holding the government to account, and he would get the job done. He was no nonsense. And so persons would have bought into that, I assume, in 2015, because that is what he offered. But of course now we can judge Dr. Rowley as a prime minister, not as the political leader of the PNM, not as the opposition leader of the PNM. We can judge him now on his track record as a prime minister for the past almost 10 years. And we could determine whether we found that to be a good performance or not so good performance. Similarly with Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar, we can judge her track record on her prime minister, which was a fair performance. But of course, you and I may think that, but the population in 2015 to now would have not agreed. They would have not agreed with that. And so the voice of the people is the voice of God. And so if it is that the people are rejecting you at the polls, then if the UNC really interested in winning an election, they need to do something differently to have a chance to beat the PNM. Now, as much as I am in favor of the Fab Five, you know, I am also very much attracted to Mr. Augustine and Dr. Faith B. Israel and their type of progressive politics in the THA, you know. I'm very much attracted to that.
I don't think they're interested in national politics, so they formed the TPP, the Tobago People's Party. And I don't think it's still, yeah.
Well, the thing is, they are, and they hold the position, and I respect their position, that the island of Tobago's business must come first. And I think at some point, they would be able to I guess, cross the seas, to have a discussion when it comes to the parliament, because there are 2 seats there. And I'm sure the advocacy in Tobago, at least under the TPP, they would like to have a voice in the House. I'm not saying Mrs. Kojo Lewis or Miss Ayanna Webster is not doing it. I think that they may want to be a bit more effective in terms of their party's policy. You see, when you get into whatever spaces is government, well, parliament, right, whether in opposition or government, you have an opportunity now to execute party's policy, whether it is governing policy or whether it is accountability policy. How are you going to do that? How are you demonstrating that to the country? Through the debates. I think Mr. Charles, MP Charles, put out a release recently, and he indicated that, and I didn't even notice, that the current opposition leader only asked 1 prime minister question in the past 4 years. Now I want to let the population know that there's a built-in accountability within the parliament to hold the government to account, and you do that through prime minister questions. I believe prime minister question happens once a month. And I remembered it was primetime television in 2010 to 2015 when Dr. Rowley would get up for prime minister questions. It was mainly him, and I believe at that time it would have been the MP for Point Fortin, which would have been Paula Gopi-Schoon.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Because Labrie was Fitzgerald Jeffrey. Rest in peace. Yeah.
And so both of them would go toe-to-toe, but mainly Dr. Rowley. Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar has a very good track record as a prime minister. She was, again, former prime minister, current opposition leader, current political leader of the UNC. And in 4 years, you only asked the man 1 question?
Listen, you say in primetime television, the opposition then, when they brought forward a no-confidence motion, it was a no-confidence motion. Those motions went late into the night, early in the morning. I remember it very clearly. Versus what a no-confidence motion is today, what it is now, quite unfortunate. But I hear you on all the fronts, sir. I hear what you're saying, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. All I can say, my friend, is buckle up, tighten your belt. It's going to be a wild ride.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Next year and a half. 2 years, because we got THA elections as well. Chris, thanks very much for joining us once more, Prime.
Thanks for having me on as well, and I want to wish Trinidad and Tobago, and of course yourself, and everyone in the studio.
I'm part of TNT, just as
and everyone in the studio a special good morning, and have a very safe and productive weekend. Enjoy your weekend, be safe, and get ready for Monday. You know, get ready for Monday.
As we conclude Friday, get ready for Monday. I couldn't say it any better, ladies and gentlemen. Do have a great weekend ahead, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Happy World Press Freedom Day. My name is Maya Cooper. We're commemorating World Press Freedom Day by exploring the theme Press Freedom in the Digital Age with Minister Simon Denobrega in the Office of the Prime Minister responsible for communications, Minister of Education Dr. Nian Gatsby-Dolly, along with journalists Ryan Bechu and Crystal Wilson. Since 1993, May 3rd has been recognized as World Press Freedom Day. This day stands as a reminder to both the government and the media entities the importance of upholding the commitment to press freedom. When World Press Freedom Day was first proclaimed in 1993, the current impact of digital technology is almost unimaginable. The growth of digital technologies has changed the dynamic of the journalistic process and what that means for press freedom. Join us as we dive into the relationship between the public and the press, the role of artificial intelligence, and the expansion of social media. From the origination of artificial intelligence, we would have never imagined that it will take the mold that it is in currently. So, Minister Gatsby-Dolly, how do you think that AI has now affected and impacted the journalistic process?
The nemesis of a media house would be fake news. I am one person that sees a lot of hope and value in AI, and I think it has real impact for journalism as well, but it is how we prepare our young people, and also it's how our media houses distinguish themselves above the rabble-rousers.
And a lot of AI training will have to go into it, because even the reputable mainstream media of Trinidad and Tobago could be prey to what is happening. That's a huge challenge that we as an industry have to be proactive and have to confront. Artificial intelligence is a huge help to journalism. It's a huge help. But we have to hold hands, because it is equally destructive for both the press and the public service, artificial intelligence.
The need for AI training, it is fundamental, it is essential. It will make or break a newsroom if misused, if mishandled.
But I do think that it does require investment by media owners, media house owners, into one, ensuring that the newsrooms not only get the technology, get the tools, but that there is a constant and consistent upskilling of the journalists in your newsroom. On many issues, I think we actually do sit on the same side. And I do think that this also requires us to be partners.
As well as when you were talking about training, a key part of training for AI is also training AI itself. Because if you don't give it information, it cannot really produce anything. Right. So a key part of that is training the AI to understand who is the voice, what is CNC3's voice, what is TV6's voice.
It's TTT's voice as well.
TTT's voice. How do we now add the nuance of a multifaceted society like Trinidad and Tobago?
But I do believe, Maya, that the challenge of communicating and edifying and informing that group that we all agree need to be edified, I believe the answer lies in artificial intelligence.
When it comes to this level of misinformation and disinformation, how do you all currently deal and kind of counteract that actively?
It's a battle that for the journalism industry cannot win without governmental support, with governmental legislation, with governmental help.
It's important and incumbent upon us as ministries to give information. A well-oiled communications department, being responsive with factual information, and being proactive, putting information out there that is important. I think those are the things that we as government have to do. And organizing our ministries to be able to give us the information quickly, these are the things we have to do. This is our contribution to ensuring that, we reduce the effect of misinformation and false.
And then it sometimes just boils back down to the public consuming what it wants to consume.
We have so many sources available to us as a population now to be able to get information. But I also think that we have never been more misinformed. Very often when we talk about this, we undervalue the role of radio. They are underinformed, and sometimes they also feed misinformation, particularly when you have call-in segments.
But who is to blame for the demise of radio informers? It is up to the radio presenters. They have to hold their hands up, or their leaders have to hold their hands up and say that we have not done good enough in informing ourselves. We have not recognized, or we have not appreciated the responsibility of communicating with a mass audience.
There's a song, now this song predates me, eh? It says, video kill the radio star.
It doesn't predate me though, yeah.
I think somewhere along the way, when TV came in, I think radio changed from maybe information to entertainment. So therefore we have to hold a higher standard.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Across the board, it is clear that there's a key strengthening that is needed. Not to say that relationship isn't strong, but there's a key strengthening in a relationship between the press and the government. Thank you for tuning in to our conversation on press freedom in the digital age. We want you to join the discussion. Head over to our social media platforms at TT Gov Communications and share your thoughts on press freedom with us.
Press freedom matters because humanity matters, because it is essential for how we conceive of ourselves as human beings and how we conceive of the world that we live in.
Because it is about protecting human rights. If not for us, then who will speak up for those people who are from marginalized communities, who are minorities?
Particularly as we are in the age of disinformation and misinformation.
I believe that any freedom in a democratic society depends on knowledge.
Everyone needs facts, factual information to make free and informed decisions.
Press freedom allows journalists to investigate abuses, injustice, corruption.
So press freedom is essential in keeping the public informed and holding government accountable, and that would not be possible without it.
High-quality journalism and access to information can save lives and withstand dictatorships.
For those of us not lucky to live in a democracy, it's just as important, maybe more so, that the press are able to be that check on power in the absence of the ballot box.
There are organized efforts across the globe to target us, to discredit us. But remember, if not for us, who will tell the stories?
We have to fight, we have to sustain democracy and human rights collectively.
And be the voice of the voiceless.
Without independent information, without quality information, we cannot survive.
Officials to do more to rescue the estimated 129 captives seized by militants that remain in Gaza. The Israeli military says 35 of them are believed to be dead, including Or. The United Nations marks every May 3rd as World Press Freedom Day, meant to raise awareness of the importance of the freedom of the press. UNESCO awarded its World Press Freedom Prize to all Palestinian journalists covering the war in Gaza, where Israel has been battling Hamas for nearly 7 months. At least 97 members, by some counts, over 100 have been killed since the start of the war. The vast majority, more than 90 of them, were Palestinians. Well, media watchdog group Reporters Without Borders warned about the declining government support of press freedom as it unveiled its annual world rankings this Friday. Norway keeping its top spot, Eritrea coming in last, taking that over from North Korea. Leo McQuinn reports.
A stark warning that government support for press freedom is in decline. On Friday, Reporters Without Borders unveiled its annual world rankings. In this video, published on their website, the NGO accused a growing number of governments of failing journalists.
One thing is very clear at the global level, that press freedom is being threatened by the very people who should be its guarantors, political authorities. Of the 5 indicators that make up countries' overall scores, it is the political indicator that has fallen the most. This means that governments and political parties of all tendencies are increasingly neglecting their role in protecting press freedom.
Norway retained its top position in the rankings, while Eritrea props up the list. One of the more significant declines was Argentina, dropping 26 places down to 66th. Its fall was based on President Javier Milei's decision to close the public press agency Telam in March, which he accused of propaganda. The Palestinian territories lie in 157th in the rankings, described as Reporters Without Borders as the deadliest country for journalists. Over 100 Palestinian reporters have been killed since the start of the war. India and China, who make up 35% of the world's population, are both in the bottom 25, with the latter described as the world's largest prison for journalists.
For more, we can speak to Tim Dawson, Deputy General Secretary of the International Federation of Journalists. Hello to you, Tim. Thank you for speaking to us. Needless to say, it's been a tragic war for journalists, notably since the war in Gaza. Deadliest conflict in recent memory for journalists. It's also been a casualty of press freedom. Tell us more.
Well, there are lots of things about the Gaza conflict that are unusual. Obviously for the entire population of the enclave, they have been trapped in an area. Most humans' reaction to bullets and bombs is to run from them. That hasn't been possible in Gaza. But what has happened to journalists in Gaza is something, again, as your reporters said, something slightly over 100 have lost their lives, which has been perhaps 6 times the mortality rate of the general population. Why it has been so high is hard to know. We know that it's been Israeli missiles and bullets that have killed journalists. I guess the question that hangs in the air is whether that has been deliberate and whether that has been something that they have designed to do. We do know that the Israeli Defense Force has very sophisticated surveillance technology and AI targeting technology and technology that tries to sort people who they consider to be legitimate targets, which allows this to be done far, far quicker than has ever been possible before. I think that when this conflict comes to an end, there is going to be quite a reckoning. My hope is that this will have the very intense consideration of the International Criminal Court. I think, the allegations, the very strong allegations that hang in the air need to be tested in a judicial environment, and where appropriate, people need to be held to account.
Yeah, so one question, why has that death toll among journalists been so high? Another question, why hasn't there been more international outrage about it?
Well, believe you me, I've been trying to stoke international outrage for as long as this has been going on. I think the level of interest in it varies. I think there have been times when, journalist deaths have been reported at 1 or 2 every day, and interest has picked up. I think 7 months in is very difficult to sustain interest. But when you look at what's happened, there is no question it is absolutely shocking. We know that many journalists have lost their lives in their homes. We know also that the conventional understanding of these tracking devices is that you follow people's mobile phones and you can work out where they spend the nights, and bombs are specifically targeted to those places. One result is that many have also lost their families who were also at those homes. So I think, I think the outrage is growing. It's also, of course, notable that the international reporters haven't been allowed in. Now, again, one can speculate at why that is. We know that many have camped out at the Rafah crossing and have sent angry protests to Israel saying, let us in, We must be allowed to see with our own eyes what's happening, and that hasn't happened. I know that if you ask Gazan journalists, they say that they think they're less likely to be targeted if they are working alongside international reporters, and they would very much welcome the international press back in, but thus far that hasn't been allowed.
Yes, and that suggests two things, doesn't it? One, perhaps a respect for international media that Israel might observe. A second thing that some people have been suggesting, a racial component to this, and that maybe the life of a Palestinian journalist in some eyes is not worth the same value of a journalist from another region of the world.
Well, I hope that hasn't been people's attitudes. I think when one sees a huge number building up, it becomes, people move through initial outrage to feeling they can do nothing and a helplessness about it. I think at heart we all know that every human life is equal in value, and that when we see a death toll on that scale, it's something that we have to pay attention to. Perhaps when things are further away from home, it's harder to focus on them, but the simple numbers of it, I think, are compelling. And as I say, I have been standing on the rooftops trying to get people's attention onto this and to try and focus particularly international bodies that might be able to do something about it onto these figures.
And we're listening, Tim. We have one more question for you. It is World Press Freedom Day. Right now, the headlines being dominated by the campus protests as well as the war in Gaza. What are some of the underreported perhaps conflict zones or locations where there are a lot of issues about press freedom that aren't getting enough attention?
Well, there's the well-known ones. I think you mentioned, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran are all places which fall a long way short of anything remotely describable as satisfactory press freedom. Yemen, there has been a long-standing and terrible proxy war going on there in which journalists have been particularly targeted, which I think should be a matter of far greater concern. But it's kind of 3 or 4 world conflicts down the, down the pecking order, as it were. Mexico has long been a terrible, terrible place to be a journalist because of drug cartels who target those who expose them, and a kind of level of government complacency about it. So, I mean, the sad fact is that you don't have to look very far to find really disturbing situations. And also in countries such as my own, the United Kingdom, we have quite significant issues. We have police forces in front of an information commissioner because they surveilled journalists. We have Julian Assange still in prison and potentially being sent to the United States in a matter of days. So, press freedom is a delicate thing that has to be treasured, and I would encourage people wherever they are to give some thoughts to how we ensure that we have free expression and a free press.
Indeed, Tim. Keep up the good work. Thank you for speaking to us. Tim Dawson from the International Federation of Journalists. Thank you. The European Union announced a new aid package for Lebanon of €1 billion. European Union Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced the aid during a visit to Beirut. Much of the money will go to boosting border control. EU member states Italy and Cyprus have already received a steady flow of asylum seekers and migrants from Lebanon. The deal following similar EU aid packages to Egypt, Tunisia, and Mauritania. It also comes against a backdrop of increasing hostility towards Syrian refugees in Lebanon. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva visited the country's south, where floods and mudslides caused by torrential rains have killed at least 29 people. Authorities in Rio Grande do Sul have declared a state of emergency. Rescuers are continuing to search for dozens of people reported missing among the ruins of collapsed homes, bridges, and roads. Storm damage affecting nearly 150 municipalities in the state, also injuring 36 people and displacing more than 10,000. Here's Brazil's president.
I want to tell you that there will be no shortage of help from the federal government for healthcare. In other words, there will be no shortage of money for transportation, no shortage of money for food. We are going to devote 24 hours of our forces to meet the basic needs of people isolated because of the rain.
In the U.S., the Democratic governor of the state of Arizona signed a bill overturning a century-old law banning abortion. This a month after the state Supreme Court had said that the Civil War-era rule was valid. Move capping a quick turnaround in a swing state in an election year. Leo McGuinn has more.
A historic moment, as on Thursday, Arizona's Governor Katie Hobbs signed a bill to repeal a ban on most abortions in the state.
A ban that was passed by 27 men before Arizona was even a state. A time when America was at war over the right to own slaves. A time before women could even vote. Today, we are doing what 23 governors and 55 legislatures refused to do, and I'm so proud to be the ones that got this job done.
The bill was passed by the Arizona Senate in a 16-14 vote on Wednesday, after 2 Republican senators crossed party lines in order to vote in favor of repealing the ban. The law, established in 1864, bars abortion from the moment of conception, with no exceptions for rape or incest. It was revived last month after Arizona's top court ruled the ban could be enforced, following the US Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade in 2022. Since that reversal ended the constitutional right to abortion, it has been left up to states to individually decide the issue. For this Democratic state representative, the repeal marks an important step in the right direction.
And here we are in the present, looking forward to the future. The ways in which we need to continue to push and to move our state so that it meets the needs and the desires of the people of Arizona.
The reproductive rights battle is taking place in a presidential election year, with Arizona considered a key swing state, where voters are likely to play a decisive role in who wins the White House.
French officials inaugurated a huge water basin meant to help keep the River Seine clean. The facility will also be used as a venue in the Paris Olympics. Sophie Lamotte has more.
It's a gigantic structure meant